Maria's hands shook as she stared at the appointment reminder on her phone. 2 o'clock today, Henderson Industries, the job interview that could change everything for her and her 8-year-old daughter, Sophia. She walked quietly to her mother's bedroom and peered through the half-open door. Rosa lay curled under 3 blankets, her face flushed with fever. The flu had hit her hard 2 days ago and she was getting worse instead of better. "Mama?" Maria whispered softly. Rosa opened her tired eyes and tried to sit up, but immediately fell back against the pillows. "Mia, I'm so sorry, I can't watch Sophia today." Maria's heart sank. She had been counting on her mother to babysit during the interview. This job at Henderson Industries wasn't just any job. It was her chance to finally stop working 2 part-time positions that barely paid the bills. The administrative assistant position offered real benefits, steady hours, and enough money to maybe even move out of their cramped 1-bedroom apartment. She closed her mother's door and walked to the small kitchen, her mind racing. The babysitter had canceled yesterday morning because her own child was sick. Maria's sister lived across the country. Her few friends were all at work during the day, struggling just like she was. The coffee maker gurgled as Maria poured herself a cup with trembling hands. She had worked so hard to get this interview. 3 months of applications, countless rejections, and finally, this one chance. Henderson Industries was known for treating their employees well. People stayed there for years, even decades. It wasn't the kind of opportunity that came around often. "Mama, you look worried." Maria turned to see Sophia standing in the doorway, still in her pajamas. Her daughter's dark hair stuck up in all directions, and she rubbed her sleepy eyes with small fists. "Good morning, mi amor. Did you sleep well?" Maria forced a smile, not wanting to burden her daughter with adult problems. Sophia nodded and climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs. "Is Abuela still sick?" "Yes, baby. She needs to rest. Today." Maria poured Sophia a glass of orange juice and started making scrambled eggs. At least she could give her daughter a good breakfast before figuring out what to do about the interview. "Are you going to work today?" Maria paused, the spatula halfway to the pan. Sophia was smart for her age, maybe too smart sometimes. Living with just her mother and grandmother had made her more observant than most kids her age. "I have something important to do this afternoon," Maria said carefully. "But I'm not sure I can go now that Abuela is sick." Sophia took a sip of her juice and watched her mother cook. "What kind of important thing?" Maria flipped the eggs, wondering how much to explain. Sophia knew money was tight. She'd seen her mother counting bills at the kitchen table late at night. She'd heard the phone calls about overdue payments, but Maria tried to shield her from the worst of their financial struggles. "It's a job interview, baby. For a better job that would help us have more money for things we need." Sophia's eyes brightened. "Like the medicine for Abuela?" Maria's throat tightened. Last week she'd had to choose between Rosa's antibiotics and the electric bill. She'd chosen the medicine, of course, but they'd been eating by candlelight for 3 days until she could scrape together the money to get the power turned back on. Yes, like medicine for Abuela. Sophia finished her eggs quickly and disappeared into the living room. Maria could hear her moving around, but she was too lost in worry to pay much attention. She stared at her phone, scrolling through her contacts one more time. Maybe there was someone, anyone, who could watch Sophia for just 2 hours. Her friend Carmen worked at the grocery store until 5. Her neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, was recovering from surgery. The teenage girl upstairs, who sometimes babysat, was at school. Maria had burned through every option she could think of. She glanced at the clock on the microwave. 10:30. The interview was in 3.5 hours, and it would take 40 minutes to get downtown on the bus. She needed to leave by noon at the latest, which gave her less than 2 hours to find a solution. "Mama, come here." Maria walked into their small living room to find Sophia fully dressed in her best school outfit, a navy blue dress with small white flowers that Maria had bought at a thrift store for picture day. Her hair was neatly brushed and pulled back with a headband. "Sophia, what are you doing? It's Saturday. You don't have school today." "I know." Sophia stood up straighter, her small hands clasped in front of her. "I can come with you to your interview." Maria almost laughed, but the serious expression on her daughter's face stopped her. "Baby, That's not how job interviews work. Kids can't come with their parents. Why not? It was a fair question, and Maria realized she didn't have a simple answer. Well, because it's a professional meeting. The people interviewing me need to focus on talking about work things. Sophia tilted her head, considering this. But I'm very quiet when I need to be. Remember when we went to the doctor? With Abuela? I sat in the corner and read my book, and the doctor said I was the best-behaved child he'd ever seen. Maria's heart ached. Sophia was right. She was remarkably well-behaved for an 8-year-old. She'd had to be. There had been too many times when Maria couldn't afford childcare and had to bring Sophia along to appointments or errands. Her daughter had learned to be patient and quiet out of necessity. This is different, mi amor. Job interviews are very formal and serious. I can be formal and serious. Sophia demonstrated by standing even straighter and folding her hands neatly. Please, Mama. I know this job is important for us. I want to help. Maria sat down heavily on their worn couch. The weight of their situation pressed down on her shoulders. She was 26 years old, working as a part-time cashier at a convenience store and cleaning offices 3 nights a week. She was tired all the time, stressed about money constantly, and watching her daughter grow up too fast. This interview at Henderson Industries was more than just a job opportunity. It was hope. Hope for stability, for benefits that would cover Rosa's medical needs, for the chance to give Sophia a better life. Sophia climbed onto the couch next to her mother. Mama, remember what you always tell me, that sometimes we have to be brave and try even when we're scared? Maria looked down at her daughter's earnest face. When had Sophia become so wise? When had their roles started to blur, with her 8-year-old daughter comforting and advising her? You're right, baby. But bringing you to a job interview, I don't think the people there will understand. Then maybe they're not the right people to work for, Sophia said simply. The words hit Maria like a gentle slap. Her daughter was right. If Henderson Industries was the kind of company that couldn't show compassion for a single mother in a difficult situation, maybe it wasn't where she belonged anyway. But she needed this job so desperately. Maria looked at the clock again. 11:15. Time was running out, and she still hadn't made a decision. She thought about calling to cancel, but when would she get another opportunity like this? How long could they survive on her current income? Sophia reached over and took her mother's hand. I'll be so good, Mama. I promise. I'll sit quietly and not say anything unless someone talks to me first. And I'll bring my book about Charlotte and Wilbur. Maria squeezed her daughter's hand. Sometimes life forced you to make impossible choices. Sometimes being a good mother meant taking a risk that felt wrong but might lead to something better. Okay, she whispered. We'll try. The bus ride downtown felt like the longest 40 minutes of Maria's life. She kept glancing at Sophia, who sat quietly beside her, clutching her worn copy of Charlotte's Web and staring out the window at the tall buildings. Are those really all offices? Sophia asked, pointing at the glass towers that seemed to touch the clouds. Most of them, yes. People work in those buildings every day. Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Do you think the people in there are happy? It was such an innocent question, but it made Maria's chest tighten. She hoped they were happy. She hoped that somewhere in one of those buildings there were people who loved their jobs, who felt secure and valued. Maybe today she could become one of them. The bus stopped right in front of Henderson Industries, a sleek building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a fountain in front. Maria had walked past it many times on her way to her evening cleaning job, but she'd never imagined she might work there during the day. Wow, Sophia whispered as they climbed the steps to the main entrance. It's like a castle made of glass. The lobby was even more impressive inside. Marble floors reflected the light. From crystal chandeliers and elegant furniture was arranged in perfect groupings. Maria felt underdressed in her best interview outfit, a black skirt and white blouse she'd bought 3 years ago for her high school graduation. Behind a curved reception desk sat a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. Her name tag read, Mrs. Chen. She looked up as Maria and Sophia approached, and her expression shifted from professional politeness to surprise. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" Maria's mouth went dry. Now that she was here, the plan seemed completely crazy. "I'm Maria Gonzalez. I have a 2 o'clock interview for the administrative assistant position." Mrs. Chen glanced at her computer screen, then back at Maria and Sophia. "Yes, I see your appointment here, and this is my daughter, Sophia." Maria's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. My mother was supposed to watch her today, but she became very ill with the flu. I know this is completely unprofessional, and I understand if you need to reschedule." Sophia stepped forward slightly, her small hand finding her mother's. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said in her most polite voice. "My mom really needs this job. I promise I'll sit very quietly and not cause any trouble. I brought my book to read." She held up Charlotte's Web, and Maria noticed her daughter's hands were trembling slightly. Sophia was nervous too, but she was trying to be brave for both of them. Mrs. Chen's stern expression softened. She'd been working at Henderson Industries for 15 years, and she'd seen plenty of desperate job candidates, but she'd never seen a child advocate so earnestly for her parent. "Well, let me see what I can arrange," Mrs. Chen said gently. "Perhaps you could wait in our employee lounge while your mother has her interview. There are comfortable chairs, and..." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, interrupting her words. Maria's heart nearly stopped as a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out. Even Sophia seemed to sense that this person was important, because she moved a little closer to her mother. The man had gray hair at his temples and sharp blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His presence filled the entire lobby, and Maria could tell immediately that he was someone who was used to being in charge. "Mrs. Chen, is there a problem?" he asked, his voice deep and commanding but not unkind. Maria wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Of all the times for the boss to show up, why did it have to be now? "Mr. Henderson," Mrs. Chen said quickly, "this is Maria Gonzalez. She has a 2 o'clock interview for the administrative position. She's had a family emergency with childcare." James. Henderson looked from Maria to Sophia, taking in the scene. Maria braced herself for the inevitable dismissal. She'd be asked to leave, to reschedule, to come back when she could be more professional. But instead, something unexpected happened. Mr. Henderson's expression grew curious, rather than annoyed. He walked closer, and Maria noticed that despite his intimidating presence, his eyes were warm. "And what's your name, young lady?" he asked Sophia directly. Sophia straightened her shoulders the way Maria had taught her when meeting adults. "My name is Sophia Gonzalez, sir. I'm 8 years old and I'm in 3rd grade at Roosevelt Elementary." "That's a very good school," Mr. Henderson said seriously. "What's your favorite subject?" "Reading and science. I want to be a doctor when I grow up so I can help sick people get better." Maria watched in amazement as her daughter carried on a conversation with one of the city's most successful businessmen, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mr. Henderson glanced at the book in Sophia's hands. "Charlotte's Web. That's an excellent choice. Have you read it before?" "This is my 3rd time. Charlotte is very smart and loyal. She saves Wilbur even though she's just a spider and he's a pig, and nobody expects her to be able to help." Something flickered in Mr. Henderson's eyes. Surprise, maybe even admiration. "That's a very thoughtful observation. Sometimes the people who seem smallest can make the biggest difference, can't they?" Sophia nodded eagerly. "That's what my mom always tells me. She says it doesn't matter how much money you have or how big your house is. What matters is how you treat other people and whether you help them when they need it." Maria felt her cheeks flush again, but this time with pride instead of embarrassment. When had her daughter become so articulate, so wise beyond her years? Mr. Henderson was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking about something. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was still professional, but there was something warmer in it. "You know, Sophia, I was just thinking, since you're here, and since you seem like such an intelligent young lady, perhaps you'd like to see what our company does. Would you be interested in coming to your mother's interview?" Maria's eyes widened. "Oh no, Mr. Henderson. That's not necessary. I couldn't ask you to..." "You're not asking," he said with a slight smile. "I'm offering. Besides, I'm curious to hear Sophia's thoughts on our operation. Children often see things that adults miss." Sophia looked up at her mother with bright, hopeful eyes. "Can I, Mama?" Maria felt like she was in some strange dream. This was nothing like any job interview she'd ever heard of. But Mr. Henderson seemed genuine in his invitation, and she was hardly in a position to refuse. "If you're certain it wouldn't be a disruption." "I think it might be exactly what we need," Mr. Henderson said, though Maria wasn't sure what he meant by that. "Shall we head up to the conference room?" As they walked toward the elevators, Mrs. Chen gave Maria an encouraging smile. "Mr. Henderson has been known to do unexpected things," she whispered, "but his instincts are usually right." In the elevator, Sophia stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her, clearly trying to be on her best behavior, but Maria could see the excitement in her daughter's eyes. For Sophia, this was an adventure. For Maria, it felt like the most important few minutes of her life. "Tell me, Sophia," Mr. Henderson said as they rode up to the 5th floor. "What do you think makes a good workplace?" Sophia considered the question seriously. "I think people should be kind to each other, and if someone is having a hard time, the other people should try to help instead of being mean about it." She glanced at her mother as she spoke, and Maria realized that Sophia had learned those lessons from watching their own struggles. Her daughter had seen how cruel the world could be to people who were just trying to get by. Mr. Henderson nodded slowly. "That's very wise. I think you and I are going to have an interesting conversation." As the elevator doors opened, Maria took a deep breath. Whatever was about to happen, there was no turning back now. The conference room was bigger than Maria's entire apartment. A long wooden table stretched down the middle, surrounded by leather chairs that probably cost more than she made in a month. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, and Maria could see people walking on the sidewalks far below, looking tiny as ants. Mr. Henderson pulled out a chair for Sophia, treating her like an honored guest instead of an inconvenient tag-along. "Would you like some water or juice, Sophia?" "Water would be nice, please," Sophia replied politely, settling into the big chair with her book on her lap. Maria sat across from Mr. Henderson, her resume and portfolio folder arranged neatly in front of her. She'd practiced for this interview dozens of times in front of her bathroom mirror, but nothing had prepared her for having her daughter as an audience. "Before we begin," Mr. Henderson said, pouring water from a glass pitcher into 3 cups, "I want you both to know that this is a safe space. Maria, I can see you're nervous and that's completely understandable, but I'm not here to judge you for bringing Sophia today. Actually, I'm impressed by the creative problem solving." Maria felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "Thank you. I've never been in a situation like this before." "Neither have I," Mr. Henderson admitted with a chuckle. "In 20 years of running this company, I've never had a job candidate bring their child to an interview. But then again, I've never met a child quite like Sophia." Sophia looked up from her book, surprised to be included in the conversation. "Am I allowed to talk?" "Of course you are," Mr. Henderson said. "In fact, I hope you will. Now, Maria, let's start with the basics. Tell me about your current work experience." Maria began explaining her jobs at the convenience store and the office cleaning company. As she talked, she watched Mr. Henderson's face for any sign of judgment. Many employers looked down on service work, as if cleaning offices or running a cash register wasn't real work. But Mr. Henderson listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about her responsibilities and the skills she'd developed. When she mentioned having to handle difficult customers at the store, he nodded with understanding. "Dealing with people when they're stressed or angry is one of the hardest parts of any job," he said. "How do you stay calm in those situations?" "Try to remember that everyone is fighting some kind of battle," Maria replied. "The man yelling about the price of milk might have just lost his job. The woman snapping at me about the long line might be worried about getting home to her kids. If I can help make their day a little easier, maybe they'll be kinder to the next person they meet." Sophia looked up from her book again, a proud smile on her face. She'd heard her mother say those exact words before, usually after a particularly difficult shift at work. Mr. Henderson made a note on his pad. That's an excellent philosophy. Now, this position would involve managing schedules for several executives, handling correspondence, and coordinating meetings. Have you done anything similar? As Maria described her organizational skills and attention to detail, Sophia quietly observed the conversation. She noticed how her mother sat up straighter when talking about work she was passionate about, how her eyes lit up when describing problems she'd solved. I may not have experience in a corporate environment, Maria said, but I'm very good at juggling multiple responsibilities. Between work, taking care of my mother, and raising Sophia, I've learned how to prioritize and stay organized under pressure. I can vouch for that, Sophia suddenly said, then covered her mouth with her hand, looking embarrassed for interrupting. Mr. Henderson smiled. Please go ahead, Sophia. Well, my mama keeps track of everything, Sophia says, earnestly. She knows when all my school assignments are due, when Abuela needs to take her medicine, when bills need to be paid, and she never forgets anything. And she does it all while working 2 jobs. I think that's pretty amazing. Maria felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She'd never heard Sophia describe her daily routine that way before. To Maria, it just felt like survival. But through her daughter's eyes, it sounded almost heroic. Mr. Henderson leaned back in his chair, studying both of them. Sophia, can I ask you something? Sophia nodded. What do you think makes someone good at their job? Sophia thought carefully before answering, the way she always did with important questions. I think they have to care about doing it right, not just getting it done fast, and they should be honest even when it's hard, and they should treat everyone nicely, not just the important people. Those are very wise observations. Do you think your mother has those qualities? Oh yes, Sophia said immediately. My mama always tells the truth even when it gets her in trouble. Like last week, she told her boss at the store that she accidentally gave someone too much change, even though no one saw her do it. And she's always nice to everyone, even the mean customers. Mr. Henderson made another note, and Maria wondered what he was thinking. This interview was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Instead of feeling interrogated, she felt like she was having a conversation with someone who genuinely cared about understanding who she was. Maria, what are your long-term career goals? Mr. Henderson asked. This was a question Maria had practiced. But now, sitting in this beautiful office with Sophia beside her, the rehearsed answer felt wrong. Instead, she decided to be honest. I want stability, she said simply. I want to work for a company where I can grow and contribute, where I don't have to worry about my hours being cut or losing my job without warning. I want to be able to provide for my family without having to choose between groceries and medicine. And someday I'd like to help other people who are in situations like mine. What kind of help? Maria glanced at Sophia, who was listening intently. I know what it's like to be a single parent trying to make ends meet. I know how hard it is to find good childcare, or what it feels like to send your kid to school in shoes that are too small because you can't afford new ones yet. If I could help other families navigate those challenges, or if I could work for a company that understands those struggles, that would mean everything to me. The room was quiet for a moment. Mr. Henderson set down his pen and looked out the window, then back at Maria and Sophia. You know, he said slowly, I built this company to be successful, yes, but also to be the kind of place where good people could thrive. Sometimes I wonder if we've lost sight of that second goal in pursuit of the first. He stood up and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. Sophia, what do you want to be when you grow up? You mentioned being a doctor. Yes, sir. I want to help sick people get better like my abuela. But I also want to make sure my mama doesn't have to work so hard anymore. Mr. Henderson turned around, and there was something different in his expression now. What if I told you that there might be ways to help both of those dreams come true? Sophia's eyes widened with curiosity, but she looked to her mother first, as if asking permission to hope. Maria felt her heart beating faster. What do you mean? I mean that sometimes the best business decisions aren't made in boardrooms or based on spreadsheets. Sometimes they're made when you meet people who remind you why you started working in the first place. He walked back to the table and sat down, looking directly at Maria. I'd like to make you an offer, but first, I want to ask Sophia one more question. Sophia nodded eagerly. If you could change one thing about the world to make it better for families like yours, what would it be? Sophia didn't hesitate. I would make sure that when people are trying their best, they get help instead of being made to feel ashamed. My mama works so hard, but sometimes people act like it's her fault that we don't have enough money. That's not fair. Mr. Henderson nodded slowly, and when he looked at Maria again, she saw something in his eyes that looked almost like respect. I think, he said quietly, that you both have just given me the best interview I've ever had. Mr. Henderson stood up from the conference table and walked to his desk phone. Mrs. Chen, could you please cancel my 3 o'clock meeting? I need to extend this interview. Maria's stomach dropped. Did that mean she was doing badly? Was he canceling his next appointment because he needed more time to figure out how to let her down gently? But when Mr. Henderson turned back to them, he was smiling. Maria, Sophia, I'd like to try something different. Instead of sitting in this conference room asking you questions from a list, I'd like to take you both to lunch. Would that be all right? Sophia looked at her mother with wide eyes. Maria was completely confused. Are you sure? That's very kind, but I don't want to take up more of your time than necessary. Trust me, this is exactly how I want to spend my afternoon, Mr. Henderson said. He grabbed his suit jacket from the back of his chair. There's a little cafe down the street that makes excellent sandwiches. What do you say? 20 minutes. Later, they were sitting at a small table outside Tony's Cafe, a cozy restaurant that Maria had walked past many times but never been able to afford. The menu prices made her nervous, but Mr. Henderson waved away her concerns. Order whatever you'd like. This is my treat. Sophia studied the menu carefully, her finger following each line as she read. Mama, look, they have grilled cheese and tomato soup. That's my favorite. Mine too when I was your age, Mr. Henderson said. I think I'll have the same thing. Maria chose a simple salad, still feeling awkward about the whole situation. This felt less like a job interview and more like, well, she wasn't sure what it felt like, but Mr. Henderson seemed genuinely interested in getting to know them as people, not just as a potential employee and her tag-along daughter. While they waited for their food, Sophia entertained herself by watching the people walking by on the sidewalk. She waved at a small dog being walked by an elderly woman, and giggled when the dog tried to wag its entire body instead of just its tail. You're very observant, Mr. Henderson noted, watching Sophia's reactions to the world around her. My mama taught me to notice things, Sophia said proudly. She says you can learn a lot about people by paying attention to how they act when they think nobody's watching. Their food arrived, and Maria watched nervously as Sophia carefully cut her grilled cheese into small, neat squares. Her daughter had good table manners, but eating in front of Mr. Henderson felt like another test she might fail. Sophia, tell me about school, Mr. Henderson said, dipping his own grilled cheese into his soup. What's your favorite part? I like learning new words, Sophia said between bites, and I like helping other kids who are having trouble with reading. Mrs. Rodriguez lets me be a reading buddy for the first graders. That's wonderful. Do you enjoy helping others? Sophia nodded enthusiastically. It makes me feel good inside, when I can help someone understand something they were struggling with. My mama says that's one of the best feelings in the world. Mr. Henderson glanced at Maria. Your mama sounds very wise. She is, Sophia said matter-of-factly. She always knows what to do, even when things are scary or hard. Maria felt her cheeks warm. She didn't always feel wise or like she knew what to do. Most of the time, she felt like she was barely keeping her head above water. As they ate, Mr. Henderson asked Sophia about her favorite books, her dreams for the future, and her thoughts on everything from her favorite animals to what she thought made people happy. Maria was amazed by how thoughtfully Sophia answered each question, and how genuinely interested Mr. Henderson seemed in her responses. When they finished eating, they walked slowly back toward the Henderson Industries building. As they passed a small park, Sophia suddenly stopped. Mama, look! An elderly man was sitting on a bench looking through a trash can next to the path. His clothes were worn and dirty, and he had the hollow look of someone who hadn't eaten in a while. Without hesitation, Sophia walked over to him. "Excuse me, sir, are you hungry?" The man looked up, surprised. "Oh, hello there, little one." Sophia reached into the small paper bag she'd been carrying and pulled out half of her grilled cheese sandwich, which she'd wrapped in a napkin. "I saved this from lunch. Would you like it?" The man's eyes filled with tears. "That's very kind of you, sweetheart, but I couldn't take your food. I'm already full," Sophia insisted, which was true. "And my mama always says food tastes better when it's shared with someone who needs it." Maria felt her throat tighten with emotion as she watched the man accept the sandwich with shaking hands. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have a beautiful heart." Sophia smiled and ran back to her mother and Mr. Henderson. She didn't seem to think she'd done anything particularly special. To her, it was just the natural thing to do. Mr. Henderson was very quiet as they continued walking. Maria worried that Sophia's interaction with the homeless man had made him uncomfortable. Maybe he thought it was inappropriate or unsafe, or that she'd failed to supervise her daughter properly. "I'm sorry," Maria said quietly. "I should have stopped her before." "Don't apologize," Mr. Henderson interrupted, his voice rough with emotion. "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed." He stopped walking and knelt down to Sophia's level. "Sophia, can I ask you something? Why did you give that man your sandwich?" Sophia looked confused by the question. "Because he was hungry and I had food. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?" "Many adults forget that," Mr. Henderson said softly. "But you remembered. Where did you learn to be so generous?" Sophia pointed to her mother. "From watching Mama. She always shares what we have, even when we don't have very much. Last week, our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez didn't have money for groceries, so Mama made her a big pot of soup and said it was because she'd made too much for just us." Maria remembered that day. She'd stretched their food budget as far as it would go to make sure Mrs. Rodriguez and her 3 young children had something to eat. She'd never mentioned it to Sophia, but apparently her daughter had been watching and learning. Mr. Henderson stood up slowly, his eyes moving between Maria and Sophia. "You know, I've been running this company for 20 years. I've interviewed hundreds of people, hired dozens of employees, made countless business decisions, but I don't think I've ever met anyone quite like you two." "We're not special," Maria said, feeling embarrassed by the attention. "We're just trying to get by like everyone else." "That's exactly what makes you special," Mr. Henderson replied. "You're facing real hardships, real challenges, and instead of becoming bitter or selfish, you've raised a daughter who gives away her lunch to strangers. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." They had reached the entrance to Henderson Industries, but Mr. Henderson didn't seem ready to go inside yet. "Maria, I want to offer you the administrative assistant position. The salary is $42,000 a year plus full health benefits for you and your family." Maria felt the world spin around her. $42,000 was more money than she'd ever imagined making. It was enough to move to a better apartment, to get proper medical care for her mother, to buy Sophia new clothes and school supplies without counting every penny. "But," Mr. Henderson continued, "I don't think that's the right job for you." Maria's heart sank as quickly as it had soared. "I don't understand. I think you're meant for something bigger, something that would let you help other families the way you talked about in the conference room." He paused, watching their faces carefully. "How would you feel about helping me create a completely new department here at Henderson Industries?" Maria stared at Mr. Henderson, certain she had misheard him. "A new department?" "Come back upstairs with me," he said, holding the door open. "I want to show you something." Back in his office, Mr. Henderson pulled out a thick folder from his desk drawer. "For the past 6 months, I've been thinking about expanding our company's mission. We've been successful financially, but I keep wondering if we're missing something important." He opened the folder and spread several documents across his desk. "These are letters from employees, stories about struggles they're facing outside of work that affect their performance here. Single parents who can't find reliable childcare, workers caring for elderly family members, people choosing between medical bills and rent. Sophia climbed into one of the chairs across from his desk, still holding her book. She listened quietly as Mr. Henderson continued. I've been trying to figure out how to help, but I didn't know where to start. Then I met you and Sophia today, and suddenly, it all became clear. Maria leaned forward, trying to understand. I still don't know what you're asking me to do. I want you to head our new Family Support Services department. Your job would be to help our employees navigate the same challenges you've been facing. Finding affordable childcare, connecting with healthcare resources, budgeting assistance, emergency financial support. You'd be the person who understands because you've been there. The room was so quiet Maria could hear her own heartbeat. Mr. Henderson, I don't have any experience running a department. I don't have a college degree or special training in social services. But you have something more valuable than any degree, he replied. You have lived experience and genuine compassion. You figured out how to survive and raise an amazing daughter under incredibly difficult circumstances. That's expertise you can't learn in a classroom. Sophia looked up from her book. Mama, that sounds like helping people, like you always wanted to do. Maria's eyes filled with tears. It did sound like everything she'd ever wanted to do. But it also sounded too good to be true. What would the salary be? She asked quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. $65,000 a year plus full health benefits for your entire family. And Sophia, there's something for you too. Sophia's eyes widened. For me? Mr. Henderson smiled. Our company has a partnership with the university downtown. They offer after-school programs for employees' children, including tutoring and enrichment classes. But more than that, we'd like to start a scholarship fund for employees' children who want to pursue careers in healthcare. It would be called the Sofia Gonzalez Scholarship Fund. Sophia's mouth fell open. A scholarship fund with my name? You told me you want to be a doctor to help people, Mr. Henderson explained. That scholarship would help other kids like you follow the same dream. What do you think? Sophia looked at her mother with shining eyes. Mama, we could really help people, lots of people. Maria wiped away tears that had started falling down her cheeks. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this for us? Mr. Henderson was quiet for a long moment, looking out his office window at the city below. 25 years ago, I was a young father trying to start this company. My wife had just been diagnosed with cancer, and I was terrified we'd lose our house trying to pay for her treatment. He turned back to face them. A stranger helped us. A businessman who barely knew me co-signed a loan that kept us afloat during the worst year of our lives. He told me that someday when I was successful, I should remember what it felt like to need help. What happened to your wife? Sophia asked gently. She got better, Mr. Henderson said with a smile. She's been cancer-free for 20 years now. But I never forgot that man's kindness or the promise I made to him. Today, meeting you both, I realized I'd been waiting for the right opportunity to keep that promise. Maria stood up shakily. I need a minute to think. Of course. Take all the time you need. Maria walked to the window and looked down at the street where they'd met the homeless man earlier. Everything was happening so fast. This morning she'd been desperate for any job that would pay the bills. Now she was being offered a chance to build something meaningful, something that could help countless families. Mama? Sophia's voice was soft behind her. Are you scared? Maria turned around. A little. This is a big change, baby. It would mean new responsibilities, new challenges. But you always tell me that the best things happen when we're brave enough to try new things, even when they're scary. Mr. Henderson chuckled. Your daughter is very wise. She gets that from watching you handle impossible situations with grace, he continued, looking at Maria. The way you've managed to keep your family together, to raise such a remarkable child, while working multiple jobs and caring for your mother. That's the kind of strength and wisdom I want leading this department. Maria thought about Rosa, lying sick at home. With this job, they could afford better health care for her mother. They could move to a place where Rosa would have her own room, where Sophia could have space for a real desk to do her homework. If I took this job, when would I start? Whenever you're ready. We'd need to give you time to transition from your Current positions. Sophia tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mama, remember what Charlotte did for Wilbur? What do you mean, baby? She used her talents to save him, even though it was scary and she didn't know if it would work. But she tried because it was the right thing to do. Mr. Henderson looked impressed. That's a perfect analogy, Sophia. Sometimes we have to trust that our talents will be enough to handle whatever comes next. Maria took a deep breath. Every instinct told her this was too good to be true, that something would go wrong, that people like her didn't get opportunities like this. But looking at Sophia's hopeful face and thinking about all the families who were struggling the way they had been struggling, she realized that maybe this wasn't about what she deserved. Maybe it was about what she could give. I accept, she said quietly, then louder. I accept your offer. Sophia jumped up and hugged her mother tightly. Mr. Henderson smiled and extended his hand for a handshake. Welcome to Henderson Industries, Director of Family Support Services. 6 months later, Maria sat in her new office, reviewing applications for emergency childcare assistance. Through her window, she could see Sophia in the company's after-school program, helping a younger child with a reading assignment. The Family Support Services Department had helped over 50 families in its first 6 months. They'd connected single parents with reliable childcare, helped employees navigate medical bills, and provided emergency assistance to families facing temporary hardships. On Maria's desk sat a framed photo from that first day, her, Sophia, and Mr. Henderson sharing lunch at Tony's Cafe. Next to it was a letter from the first recipient of the Sofia Gonzalez Scholarship Fund, a teenager whose mother worked in accounting and who dreamed of becoming a nurse. Rosa's health had improved dramatically with proper medical care, and they'd moved into a sunny 2-bedroom apartment just 10 minutes from Sophia's school. But the best part wasn't the money or the benefits or even the beautiful office. The best part was knowing that every single day, Maria was helping other families avoid the fear and desperation she'd once felt. She was proving that sometimes the people who've been through the hardest times are exactly the ones who can offer the most hope. And Sophia? She still carried her worn copy of Charlotte's Web, but now she also carried the confidence that comes from knowing that sometimes, when you're brave enough to take a chance, the world might just surprise you with something wonderful. Every afternoon when Maria picked up Sophia from the after-school program, her daughter would ask the same question. How many families did we help today, Mama? And every day Maria's answer filled them both with joy. One more than yesterday, baby, one more than yesterday.